everyone, I'm Rita Kakati-Shah, your host for the Uma Show. Welcome to your one-stop journey for feeling empowered. We're a platform for change. We build confidence. We are your voice. We want you to be bold, be you, be Uma. Today, we're exploring empowering women, and I'm so excited to be joined by our goddess of go-getting, Sonal Rinello, who is joining us from Connecticut, and she is the co-founder and CMO of Career Guru. Welcome, Sonal. It's great to see you.
Hi, Rita. I'm so excited to be here. I feel like we talked about this months ago, and the moment has finally come.
Yes, I'm so excited about this. So tell us a little bit about yourself, a bit about your upbringing and how you grew up.
So, it's interesting as I reflect on sort of some of the things I knew we wanted to talk about. I really had this unusual upbringing where my parents came over to study. And so they went to graduate school and then found themselves in all places, central Illinois. So you can imagine sort of they were raised in India, went to college there, came here. And lo and behold, what was supposed to be maybe a couple-year journey, they decided to move and to stay. And so I was raised in Illinois. I had probably as all-American an upbringing as one could expect when I was bridging two cultures. And by that, I mean, it was so interesting that my parents worked really hard to give us those all-American experiences.
Yeah.
But they couldn't always relate to some of the things, especially when you sort of get to those older years, because they didn't grow up here.
Yeah.
But I'm so thankful as I look back that they kind of made it their own as parents. And then by default, I was able to make my own journey not fit into any specific path. It was up to me to make my own. I will say when it came time to sort of think about the future, as so many of you probably can relate to, I come from a family of doctors and engineers. So I actually went to college to study engineering, thinking I might someday be a doctor as well. But as fate would have it, I ended up graduating with an engineering degree, went to work for Anderson Consulting, and then actually embarked on a career in business. And I will say that, again, when you think about influences in your life, at one point, as I was considering a master's, I had thought about studying something like philosophy or sociology. And my father looked at me with his sort of cultural lens and said, how will you make a living doing those things? So I ended up, I went to business school, which I loved, and I'd always had an interest in my early career, certainly informed that. And then I'm one of those lucky ones in some ways where the predetermined path actually ended up being more interesting than I might ever have imagined.
Wow.
And as I listened to some of the stories of women you've spoken with, and I think even your own, as you've become this amazing role model for women, is you can't plan everything. So don't necessarily expect life to operate in a linear way. I am an engineer who ultimately ended up in beauty marketing, if you can believe that.
I was just about to ask you, because you had an engineering background, then you did an MBA, and yet you ended up in a career in marketing. So tell us about that.
So this is what I find so interesting when I talk with other women and even men and understand their journeys. I think you come back to what are the things that drive your interests and your capabilities. So I do believe one's professional journey is more typically skills and interest driven and strengths driven. And it's up to you to figure out where that path can take you. And it may not be the most obvious one until you do a little bit more soul searching. Or, as I've come to find, the power of connecting with other people to help you maybe shape that journey is really something I wish I had learned sooner in my career. That so many of us, and again, maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe it's a female thing, but we're kind of do-it-yourselfers. So asking for help or pausing, slowing down to just take stock isn't necessarily something we all easily think about doing. But those moments, as one of the women I've met more recently said, it's slowing down to speed up can be a very powerful thing.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So how did that end up in a journey in marketing then?
Well, so for me, what was interesting is marketing. At one point in my career, I thought, well, this is a fairly more of a creative endeavor, right? And it's but over time, as it became more analytical, and process driven as sort of my own journey in some of the roles I'd had, I came to realize it brought to bear going all the way back to studying engineering, which is about process and problem solving, right? And being numbers, all the way, and span sort of the creative piece, which I have a little story. So when I was growing up, my mother always said it would be really nice just to carry a little bit of mascara and lipstick in your bag so you could touch up if you ever found yourself in a situation. And I was a bit of a tomboy. So for me, that sounded like the worst advice ever.
Yeah,
like, that's so stereotypical. I didn't buy into it. Fast forward, however many years later, I end up developing a real passion for beauty and for product. And so I think my mother, she laughed when I finally shared that moment with her. And so having done a lot of work in strategy consulting, that actually lent itself well to going into a marketing role. And what's great about strategy as a professional pursuit for those who may be interested is it really gives you exposure to so many different functions within an organization in a way that very few roles do early in your career. And I was able to do that through management consulting, but certainly you could step into some of those roles even within companies out the get-go. So in that journey of being a consultant, I came to realize I loved consumer research. I loved branding. I loved thinking about how brands reposition themselves.
Right. Yeah.
Deliver on their objectives. So that's what ultimately led to the more tactical function of marketing. And a lot of the roles I've had, whether they're big or small companies, for me, I love doing the high level, but I also love doing the tactical implementation. So being able to span both in a role was really important to me. I think each individual, some people love playing at 30,000 feet and being really high level, and others really love the nitty gritty details. My husband and I often talk, even, as we're reflecting sort of on a moment in his business career, or as I'm pondering things, we talk about every role nowadays, no matter what you are doing, is about managing the strategic and the big idea with the
true. In all walks of our life, it appears in some way. I want to go back to, you mentioned this passion of beauty that stemmed later in your life. And actually you served as VP of marketing positions in several roles actually, but such as L'Occitane products, Provence. Tell us a bit more about those experiences and some of the roles that you did.
Yes, so L'Occitane was a great opportunity where, a little bit about how I even found that role was really through the power of connecting. So it was actually a classmate of mine that turned me on to that opportunity. And what she appreciated was that I brought a different skill set than maybe a traditional marketer would, because we were in startup mode. There was so much going on. So what I loved, it was the strategic. We were rolling out 50 new stores in the next 12 months across the country. We were a global brand, yet we were still sort of in our early stages here in the US. So one of the things I really enjoyed, though, and I've come to be able to replicate that opportunity, was actually creating a marketing team and talking about, like, how do we professionalize what we do as a startup for maximum impact and efficiency? And that's everything from job descriptions to hiring the right team, to thinking about the next big idea, like which category we should launch into. But by the way, we need to write copy for the next product that we're rolling out. So that was a really great opportunity to do literally all the things I love doing, but I may not have been able to articulate it as well at the time. So I think the reflection piece really helped me with other roles. That company was amazing. My first child was born, and so I decided to opt out. And then I really did miss working. So I've done a number of projects since, and then worked full-time for a variety of companies. So each of those sort of honestly tapped into that L'Occitane experience. But again, building out a team, identifying new categories for growth. We were thinking about launching a baby line at the time. Which they ultimately did. We were contemplating going on QVC or HSN, because at the time that wasn't something like upper end beauty brands or skincare
Right.
did. Now everyone thinks it's normal, but back at the day, it was like
It was a new concept. Yeah.
exactly a new concept. And what's the impact on your brand equity? So
Yeah. And absolutely love L'Occitane products. So I'm a big fan of them. But just speaking about your global strategy roles as well. Now, you actually worked at companies like Avon. So tell us a bit more about the strategic side of things. I know you've touched upon it already, but just a bit more detail about that.
absolutely. So the strategic roles, for those of you who maybe have been exposed to management consulting or ever thought about it as a career, I will say it was an amazing opportunity to look at different industries and also different functions within businesses and the types of issues they wrestle with. So my strategy role really was about helping brands do what they do better. And what I loved was the foundation of sort of the thought process that you could bring to any endeavor. And that starts with the research process, the analytics, who are the stakeholders, like basic things, but learning them sooner in your career certainly helps accelerate moving forward, how you can think about opportunities and how you can actually tackle them for success. I hadn't planned on having a global role. That wasn't something I had pursued actively, but I will say in hindsight, any opportunity one has to pursue those types of roles absolutely should be a no-brainer. And so I traveled around the world talking with our counterparts, taking global ideas and understanding how to make them local ideas. And the opportunity to travel to Tokyo, to Poland, to Sao Paulo was truly one that is difficult to replicate, but you also see the impact that you can bring. Again, Avon was an American-based company, so the impact of bringing those ideas, but then really understanding how do we make them work within each of these cultures who have different definitions of beauty, for example, different ways of distribution, different ways of communicating what's important. So that was, again, a great opportunity that I recommend if anyone has the chance.
Absolutely. And that sounds fascinating, your experiences as well. So now you're the co-founder and CMO of Career Guru. Walk us through that journey.
So as I said, my career path is anything but linear. And I hope people find actually faith and confidence in understanding that as so many people I know and successful women, opportunities spring from the most unlikely of places. And the journey to Guru was really, I'm in a marketing role, but we're a small company. So we're all wearing multiple hats, which again is something I really enjoy. But the journey actually started with, I wrote a book several years ago and I had wanted to become an entrepreneur. And the book was called Jobgenda, and it was a tool to help women network to find their jobs, right? Because there wasn't anything that was helping me at the time to do that same thing. So what started as a personal idea became something more. But what's interesting is, being a sole entrepreneur, I realized was actually not for me. I needed socialization. I needed someone to keep the momentum, to brainstorm. So I'm a social creature. I learned in that moment of trying to start something. But what I did enjoy was the purpose-driven mission. So when I did workshops with college students and women, and I loved that, engaging them, how they can sort of feel confident in achieving their ambitions. So one of my clients, though, at the time asked me to come to work full time. So I actually left that dream to the side and I went back to work full time for a wine company, believe it or not, where I had done a number of marketing projects for them on innovation and repackaging. So I thought, well, this is my opportunity to go back to work in a more traditional environment. So let's go for it. My kids were at a good age. So I did that. But I will tell you, I think we all have an issue with sort of looking back and identifying success is sort of easy, but identifying failures or I wish I had done something differently. I will tell you, I went to work and I loved the company and the people, but I realized my real passion was somewhere else.
Right.
So actually I stepped out of that role after about 2 years, which is not something that was comfortable or that was probably in my DNA fundamentally, but it was probably one of the best decisions I made in my career because I stayed true to what am I about? Where are my strengths? Where do I want to continue to develop? So I took a couple years off, believe it or not. And those were amazing, having not ever really done that.
Wow.
And I was able to spend time with my parents. I was able to spend more time with my kids. Along the way, Susanna Keith, who's the founder of Hello Career Guru, I had met her years ago. She reached out to me and she shared that she was looking for someone to join in a marketing capacity. And she had recalled that I had an interest in helping women move forward in their careers because I had done this book, conducted workshops. So she said, I think the mission is not unique to you. It's not something I have to convince you of its value, but would you like to come on board? And for me, serendipity played a real role because my idea had a digital component, which I had never moved forward. And Hello Career Guru, which is a digital platform, actually helped me bridge that gap and bring those ideas to this moment in time. And honestly, if you would ask me to script that an opportunity would come together the way it did, starting with a friendship 20 years ago, a book I wrote 5 years ago, and then to this moment, it would not have been something you could predict. So, so what I love now is really our mission is something I'm passionate about, which is how do we help women understand how they focus limited time, energy, and resources on the things that are most important for them in their career and given their goals. And it's been a great journey so far, and we're getting ready to launch, which will be an exciting next chapter.
Fabulous, and can't wait to see that. Yeah, and having been involved now with yourself and Susanna in the Hello Career Guru platform, I think it's an amazing and much needed endeavor out there. So obviously you're a very successful professional, Sonal. Tell us about any challenges that you might have faced along the way, whether it was being a woman or, as a person of color.
So I think about that often, especially given the dialogue that sort of, our cultural dialogue around women in the workplace and opportunities. And I will say, at one point in my life, I think maybe I thought being a female was just about being different because I tended to be in male dominated environments, but I didn't see that as a hindrance because I think for me personally, I had been different my whole life. I'd been an Indian girl growing up in central Illinois who studied engineering. So being different wasn't what was something new to me, but I believe what I've learned since is I think a lot of what we think is different is about the obvious things, gender, nationality, but I actually think it's really more about personality types and understanding who you are intrinsically and what are your strengths and weaknesses. And that's no different for women than it is for men. But in some ways, if we merely stop at the obvious things, we don't do that deeper work of how can I be a better professional, which is independent of the surface things, if you will.
Absolutely.
Like my husband and I were joking about being able to read the room as a real skill. And my husband is amazing at that. Me, I am pretty good. And my husband was joking. He's like, well, you're getting better at it. And I said, well, sometimes I choose to ignore it. I may read the room and I may choose to ignore it. But, it was an example of, it's really more, I think you need to do that deeper level of analysis about what are the barriers to where you want to get to, or what are the things you can work on to help you get where you want to? And everyone brings a set of skills and strengths. So you have to recognize those and appreciate that's who you are and that's what makes you unique. But then what are the things that really can make you better? And, being your best self, I think at the end of the day is a really good mantra, no matter whether it's as a friend, a sister, a worker, a wife. It just, I think about bringing your best self really transcends some of the things that become obvious barriers to our own development.
I think I 100% agree with you. And also your analogy of reading the room, because to your point, if you are presenting to, and I've done this so many times in my career as well, to a very just male audience, and you walk in and either one of two reactions happen. One is everyone just stares because you're a pretty female, or they're just looking down and saying, okay, what has this person got to offer? So I think to your point, preparing, and your stuff, but preparing the best you can and just giving that to its best will automatically just transcend anything else. That unconscious bias that set everyone's impression in that first 6 seconds will just dissipate. but only if you're really, really well prepared. So I love that analogy that you just mentioned there, you know. Amazing. So what's next professionally on the horizon for you?
So honestly, I think it's going to be an exciting 2021 for our team and for Hello Career Guru. What I have appreciated most is understanding where I can add value, which I think all of us want to feel when we come into roles and organizations, is how am I going to make a difference? And it may, you know, it may take a little bit of time to figure that out beyond sort of the obvious resume skill sets.
Yeah.
For which you were hired or brought into a role. But also I've loved the immense growth I've been afforded in this opportunity. And so to the extent that that continues to be a part of our journey as a team at Hello Career Guru, I'm excited to launch and to get, you know, feedback from our user community and continue to develop great content, which, you know, we can't wait to have you on one of our podcasts, Rita. So I think it's just going to be a year that's, I've someone said that it's the age of Aquarius, I believe. So there's going to be massive transformation for people along multiple dimensions. And I think that I feel that personally. So I hope that that's the case because I'm ready for it.
Absolutely. I love that. Just ready for that change ahead. You know, before we let you go, Sonal, any words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our viewers today? Any young girls that are out there who might want to follow in your footsteps?
Absolutely. I know one of the women you interviewed, she was amazing. And I love that she said, you know, you want to keep your advice simple. Whether it's one that you're internalizing it and you want to continue to stay true to it, or you're sharing it. And so I was thinking about this moment, and I think my message is really keep moving forward. And even though at times the acceleration may not be quite what you want, given other things going on in your life, just always be making progress in your development as it relates to career or education. There's so many avenues nowadays for women at all life stages, whether, you know, they're coming into their early college years or, you know, they are having their third child and trying to figure out how to balance it all. I do think it's really important to continue to stay connected to your career and your development. I think firsthand, I was the cohort of women that when you step out, we hadn't really thought about what it means to step back in. And it actually, the pace of the world is such that it becomes more and more difficult to step back in. So any way you can stay connected, whether it's working part-time, whether it's going into the nonprofit world, maybe it's going back to school, but there's so many ways to do that nowadays, but it's critical to not just take a complete halt, I think, in your own career development.
Absolutely, 100% snap on. Well, thank you so much, Sonal, for sharing your incredible advice with us today. Sonal Rinello, co-founder and CMO of Career Guru. And thank you to our viewers for joining us on this empowerment journey today. We want you all to embrace that inner goddess of go-getting. We want you to be bold, be you, be Uma.